Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rowe.
Andy, I just finished up the book "The Path to Power" by Robert Caro, all about
Oh, yes.
the rise to power of Lyndon B. Johnson. None of those words are words I ever thought that I'd be saying, but you were on this podcast called Splatbook, which we love and miss, talking about this book like a year or two ago or so. And so I finally dove into it. It was the book that I listened to as an audiobook while doing my workouts for the past probably like 8 months or
Yeah.
so. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned so much about US history. I now think that like America has just sort of always been like this. It's always been bad,
Yeah.
bad, and always sort of a place for grifters and con men and cheats and sociopaths to gain power and to wield it over us. But mostly, I'm really glad that I read it. It was a fascinating book. So yeah, thank you for doing that that podcast episode all that time ago on it.
This becomes fully apparent in book 3 of this
Yeah.
Robert Caro series. But I mean, the harsh reality is, yeah, we're this nation of grifters and greedy politicians and schemers and scammers. But that's also how we get stuff done in this
Yes.
country. That's how progress happens,
Yeah.
which is the most enlightening but challenging takeaway from those Caro books. Like,
Yeah.
without this scheming, scamming, con man, grifter character, we don't make progress that was really important for us to make in the 20th
Mhm.
century.
Yeah. Is the thing that stuck out to me, and like just to bring this back to gaming, is like how likable LBJ probably was if you were interacting with him and he was sort of on your side. So it makes me think a lot about sort of like villains, right? Villains in these games and stuff. Like, like people like being, liked and like, being part of something and stuff. Like, so I've just been thinking a lot about like, the idea that you have this villain who everyone around them like actually like likes them a lot.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and like they might actually be doing lots of stuff that's outwardly good, right? Like, I mean, like you were just saying, like, you kind of can get stuff done, right? And there's a lot to be said about that too, right? And it's like, and if it aligns with your aims and your goals, then they're not a villain, right? They're like the greatest leader of leader that you've ever met. Yeah, so it's making me like just think about like kind of the nuance that a villain like a villain in a game could have. And to be clear, I think there's a lot of fun about playing like mustache twirling villain who's just like,
Mhm.
well, I don't, like it's that that like panel like I don't want to cure cancer, I want to turn everybody into dinosaurs, like
Yeah,
from
yeah.
it's like that sort of thing of just like, no, like, but I want to burn down the orphanage, like that's what I want, like that's sort of a fun and horrifying villain to play. But like real life villains are actually like, people enjoy spending time with them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a character like LBJ, his superpower is that he can persuade you, right?
Hmm.
And persuasion is kind of hard to handle in a tabletop RPG.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if the game master has some sort of grifter politician pressuring your PCs and trying to convince them, you have the meta knowledge as a player of what's going on. You obviously
Hmm.
know he's the villain, he's a bad guy. There are ways in games like D&D where you can say the villain succeeded on his persuade check and your PC is fully ensorcelled by him
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
is on his side. But that always feels like a cheat, right? And it's never fun to like dictate to players, no matter what you think as a player, your character believes this guy and is going along with this plan. But
Yeah.
that's how it works in real life, right?
Hmm.
Like, there's certain people that have sort of the cheat code that can short circuit your logical brain and can
Hmm.
convince you of stuff that, like, in the cold rational light of day, you would say my PC is never going to go along with that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, how does the GM say, well, like, actually the guy is so charismatic that your PC did in fact go along
Hmm.
with that? Like, that's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do without either stepping on player agency
Hmm.
or going meta with it and going too meta with it, right? And either of those things kind of hurts the immersion of the role-playing experience, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. That agency part is interesting because because to like truly persuade a player who's playing a character to go along with it, either the system I think needs to support that in some way, right? Like, so there's got to be like a carrot dangled in front of you, like, hey, like if you keep following down this path, if you sort of like reinforce the narrative that we're telling, you get some more experience points, or whatever the thing that they care
Right,
about
right.
like happens. And I think there's some games that do that, I think, already really well, and that can be pretty interesting. Although I don't know if I've played a game where like those can be evolving throughout the game. But anyway, set that aside for a second. Right? Yeah. So you have this like this player agency thing. It's like so you would almost have to be super convincing yourself as a GM, and most likely by hiding information from them in some way that
Yeah.
they have to find otherwise. Um, yeah.
But that's a tall order on a GM, right?
Hmm.
Because the job of GM shouldn't be having to be as charismatic as the most charismatic NPC the players come into, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't be as charismatic as the equivalent of like fantasy Lyndon Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't pull that off in person with your friends. You can't convince the players to go along with this. So
Yeah.
you need the game mechanics to be able to help you to represent that Lyndon Johnson, this Lyndon Johnson equivalent wizard or whatever it
Hmm.
is just like so overwhelmingly persuasive, and that the players all fall into it against their better judgment.
Yeah, totally. Because like so many of his schemes are like multi-year, multi-decade long schemes, and it's just that's just hard to sort of play out. I think at the table,
Yeah.
in general, right? It's like oh, like I mean, this thing that looked innocuous, right? When you play it out over time, it's like oh, that was actually really bad. Like I mean, the thing that really sticks out to me with LBJ is just the way that he started to tie like money to politics
Yeah.
like in a way that is like truly alarming and also kind of impressive at the same time, just like the ways that he skirted campaign finance laws and stuff, or what existed then and stuff,
Yeah.
just to generate these vast sums of money to essentially like buy and cheat his way into elections, like into to winning elections and stuff. And like but on the outside, right, unless you're like really in tune with that and you have someone like Robert Caro spending decades of his life investigating that, it's like it's really easy for that to just like not really make sense unless you're in that world. It's like, oh, of course, like I don't know, he's just campaigning. Like I don't know how much money he's raised and from where it is and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like I think some of those plots almost need to be more subtle. It's right. Like I think like there's a like LBJ did a lot with like bringing electricity to the Texas Hill Country, right? And like that is on the surface sort of a noble thing, but he also used that as a way to kind of like amass his own power of giving contracts to certain people, and like so then they would owe him favors and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And I could see that you could do something that's a little bit more direct, I think, in a game like that. Like oh, like hey, there's this local politician, we all love him because he's keeps giving us jobs, right? And it's like but it turns out he's picking and choosing who's getting the jobs, and the stuff you're doing isn't actually useful. Like I think
Yeah.
there's ways to maybe pull that off in a session or two, or like in a short campaign. But yeah, doing that like the long con of how I'm going to become president, like that would be difficult to do. Maybe fun to
Yeah.
play as a player, like maybe if your character had that goal, but yeah.
Yeah. And as his career goes on, you start to understand how, so LBJ, he was kind of like a man of his word. Like if
Yes.
he if
Yeah.
if you did him a favor, he remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
And if he did you a favor, he remembered it.
Yes.
And so a lot of the
Yeah.
story of his career is like getting to a point in his career where he has to call in all those favors.
Yes.
And that is like a very human way to interact with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a way that is pretty tough to realize in a game like D&D, where often the timeline of what's going on is a little fuzzy. It's a little hard to represent in a typical game of like D&D, even one that dips into politics. How do you translate into game mechanics term the whole procedure of like, for years I've had your back in this way, and now I'm calling in the debt and you're going to
Mm,
support me in this particular way? That's
yeah.
like a tough thing to do in a game genre. I'm not saying that no one keeps track of like time, but like at least most of the D&D I've run has sort of like a timeless quality to it.
Yeah.
And do you really want to have to play D&D, a D&D campaign for 10 years in order to model that reality of how these work, which is favors and debts accrued over years and years of interactions?
Yeah, I'd also argue that I think most normal people don't operate operate in that way.
Hmm.
Like I might do nice things for you because you're my friend, right? Like, but I'm not like tallying up, right? Like what LBJ would, right? Like I'm not tallying up like, oh, so Andy did this nice thing for me and this nice thing, right? And so like
Yeah.
I've got this like ledger going of of which favors to give you and when. and stuff like that. It's more like a judgment call. So I think like there's a little bit of like a you know a, where reality meets like the narrative of like if you tried to call in a favor like from 20 years ago or something on me, like I just don't know if that would have the impact that it might for a political figure like LBJ, who's like, hey, do you remember when I did this
Yeah.
thing for you, like now it's time to bend the knee and do this other thing for me.
Right, right.
But I don't know, it's something to chew on. I mean, it's like, yeah, like your villain should probably be likable. Like I think about like Strahd from Curse of Strahd and stuff. Like I think there's something alluring about like Strahd, right? Like I think you can play him in a way where it is it's a sort of like you might want to join Strahd. Right?
Hmm.
Like yeah, and I think like having that element like makes for a stronger villain of like there actually is something there. They're not just like a, I don't know. Like they're not, trying to, I'll pick on Marvel for a second. Like they're not trying to like kill half the universe, right?
Right,
From
right,
like,
right.
snapping their fingers and stuff. Like there's some intent behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
not to keep beating this horse here,
Yeah.
but good villains are ones that have genuinely good goals,
Hmm.
right? And the villainous parts of it comes in when they tell you the means by which they're going to get to that
Yes.
goal, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when you can, no one is going to sign on with Borak the Lich who wants to annihilate the universe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But like, what about Borak the Lich who has this plan to like reduce crime in
Hmm.
Waterdeep by
Yeah.
95%,
Yeah. Like, oh, that sounds great.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
And the way I'm going to do that is by killing 95% of Waterdeep, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a good villain doesn't want an evil end goal. They want a
Mm.
good end goal, and they've chosen an evil means to achieve it, right?
Mhm.
And that has all sorts of room for juicy difficult moral choices and decisions, right? And
Yes.
compromises.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
totally.
mean, maybe your typical D&D game where like we're gonna you're going into the dungeon to kill all of the trolls that have set up camp in there. Maybe that is not the most fertile ground for this kind of villain. But
Mhm.
if you're playing vampire or something else where it is about the politics and it is about what are you going to compromise or sacrifice to get to something that we all agree would be a better future,
Mhm.
that becomes pretty interesting, I guess. So
Yeah,
all that to
yeah.
say, if you're running Vampire any soon, definitely read Robert Caro's books about
I'm
LBJ.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like, sort of jokey, but also, no. You probably like, I think it is worth reading.
Yeah,
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 just for a glimpse into, like, how would someone with sort of almost no resources rise to the point where, like, there are very powerful people who feel like they owe him something and are willing to do it do it for him too.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, okay, so my last question on that, and then promise we won't talk about Robert Caro for at least an episode, is, yeah, what character class do you think LBJ is?
Oh,
Yeah, and
interesting.
I don't have an answer for this. I'm just sort of like asking asking at the same time because yeah,
Well,
you mentioned like him like ensorceling someone. It's like yeah, is he a sorcerer? Is he a bard?
I,
Yeah.
so D&D does not have as a main PC class. I mean, what you need is like a grifter class,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Grifter doesn't have to mean you're doing something evil, just that you've mastered the art of using your understanding of human psychology to get to your goals. So
Yeah.
the closest thing in like cracking open the player's handbook that you're going to get is probably the bard, right? Or
Mhm.
just because, what is LBJ? He's saying one thing to one group of people, he's saying
Mhm.
something that's literally opposed to that to a different group
Yeah.
of people, and they both believe him, right? That's a
Yes.
lot of performance checks
Mhm.
or charisma checks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a class that that just pumps a lot of points into those things is going to work.
It's probably that like a chaotic evil bard. Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so D&D's social classes, which is mostly just the bard,
Mhm.
like the way they make that work mechanically is like, well, this is sort of like a support class, right? You boost what you use your spells and your music and stuff like that to boost what other people are doing.
Hmm.
And you're sort of like a jack of all trades, like support person.
Yeah.
That is not LBJ,
No.
right? LBJ is like the main character in his narrative,
Hmm.
and he is manipulating all of you to achieve his goals.
Yeah.
There's not really like a D&D class that does that,
Yeah.
but the best you're going to start with is probably like the bard or the rogue, something with lots of skill points, or whatever the current D&D term is,
Yeah.
to invest in those deception checks. I guess how would you answer that question?
No, yeah, I think Bard's about right. There. Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably there's different systems that I think would have that sort of like just you have min maxed all into social skills to to like browbeat and yeah. So
Yeah.
the current game I'm playing right has these has browbeat and sway and like charm, like like charm, like what is yeah like yeah like charm, like all those sorts of things, right? Like that's where all of his points went into. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like even in the book, like they talk in yeah Path to Power, he talks a little bit about like various fist fights that LBJ was in, and like he just was like,
Yes.
I mean, again, like this is gonna be a very like masculine thing for me to say, but like like he didn't even like he just got beat, right? Like he
Yeah.
just yeah, he just got beat, like because it was not something that he was all talk, right? It was like all talk, like yeah, and
Yeah.
that worked most of the time, and then every once in a while, someone would actually would just would get so angry that they'd hit him and like he just would fall down
Yeah.
immediately. And like I don't think that makes him a weak person, but it does make him like weak physically, right? Like so if you're
Yeah.
thinking about like how would I stat out this guy, like there'd be so much talk and like confusion and all this sort of stuff that you would just like he would never let you get to the point where you even are able to draw a sword right
Yeah.
against him, because like if you did, like you'd win. You'd win immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so this sort of character would be worthless when you're wading into the caves of chaos
Hmm.
killing goblins.
Yeah.
But what this character would have done is like a month earlier, he would have reached out and talked to the goblin chief
Yes.
and persuaded them to like cut a deal with you,
Hmm.
so that when the main party is stepping into the caves of chaos, the outcome has been determined
Yes.
diplomatically and and through charisma already.
Yeah.
That is a hard thing to do in D&D, and that's fine, right? It's
Hmm.
not what D&D is really trying to do. But
Hmm.
like if that is the sort of if that sort of manipulation and persuasion is the sort of thing you want to do, you're gonna have a hard time with that in D&D, although it also sounds like kind of a fun challenge, to be honest.
That does sound like kind of a fun challenge. It also sounds like a really fun like rug pull moment too, to like yeah hype up like you were going to the the caves of chaos and stuff, and you show up there and it's like actually it's totally peaceful, and they've all kind of coalesced around this like
Yeah.
the duke who sent you in there on the mission, and stuff. It's like yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
if that job board it was like clear the goblins out of Garbolg cave?
Yeah.
What if instead of what if the solution to that was not going in there and killing all of the goblins that are in the cave, but cutting them in on a lucrative smuggling
Yeah.
situation, and suddenly everyone's happy, and
Yeah.
their presence no longer plagues the local merchants in the
Yeah.
town, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so.
How could this guy be a villain if he was able to to navigate
Right.
that, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure, we've all got to worship Nargle, but like whatever, like that's not a big deal. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, thank you for that. Okay, so Andy, the other thing that I wanted to talk with you about is about a specific role playing moment that I encountered in a game that I was
Ooh.
playing this past weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was. I found it to be a very interesting moment because I've been trying sort of like as I've been playing games a little bit more, just to embody a little bit more of the like kind of like drive it like you stole it, right? Like mentality
Mhm.
for my characters, right? To not get too precious about them. But sometimes it's hard to like not it's hard to embrace that, right? So like
Yeah.
I really do try to play my characters as like this is their personality, even if it doesn't sort of match my personality. I want to like sort of like honor that in the way that I'm playing them. So if it's like, okay, well this character really would do this thing, even though metagame wise, like this is a terrible idea, like we kind of got to go with it.
Mhm.
A little bit, right? And that is both fun to do because it's like, I don't know, to me it's exciting because it's like, oh, like this is a decision I wouldn't make in real life, right? Like this is why we play games, right? It's fun to kind of put on and explore those personalities. So anyway, so long story short, the game we're playing, we're at this masquerade ball. We find out that there is the like uh, the princess's bodyguard basically is a vampire. Right. So like we uncover that there's like this whole vampire cult thing happening down in the basement. And we go down there, and my character makes this charm roll basically against the vampire and manages to charm the vampire enough that like the vampire is glamored, right? Like they are just
Okay.
fully like, oh wow, they've probably got a crush on me, right? Like
Yeah.
my GM has said like, this vampire now owes you a favor, all that. So like that's all fun, right? And like so we kind of fast forward a little bit, and then the princess is sustained kind of like a mortal wound. The vampire swoops down to grab her and run away with her, and so like I run after, and so then there's this moment where the vampire turns to me and says like, I should say suspected vampire, right? We don't know for certain, but
Right, right, right.
obviously this guy's
Yeah.
like 100%
Innocent
obviously.
until proven guilty,
Yeah,
Chris.
innocent
Come
until
on.
you see those fangs come out. But yeah, but also we've never seen him, in the sunlight, right? Yeah. So he's running down this hallway, like carrying the princess who's like bleeding out and like badly hurt and all that. And I'm running after, and I say like, hey, like, I can help. And he says, like, he hisses at me again, not a vampire, just manages to
Right.
hiss, no
Yep.
problem, right? And he just says like, no, like, don't follow me, right? And so in that moment as a character, right, I have this decision of like what would I do, right? And like the character I'm playing, Nettle, she's like, she's sort of out for herself, right? So if she's being told no by a vampire, she's not just going to charge in because it's sort of the right thing to do,
Hmm.
right? And so like I make this decision to not follow. And in the moment, I was struggling with like, from a role playing perspective, it would be really interesting to follow that vampire into the room to see what happens next.
Hmm.
But like there's also that preservation instinct of like, but if I do that, I might get like this character might might get killed off, right?
Yeah,
Because like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I can ask the rest of my party to charge in there with me to kind of end up fighting a vampire. Yeah, and so like I make the decision to kind of back off, and then we fast forward to the next day, and like we find out that the princess has died, right? So we'll find out more information about that later. But it stuck with me because it's made me think a lot about like sort of those decisions that you give to players. Like, okay, like here's sort of a path you can go down. I'm daring you almost as a GM, right? Like I'm daring you to say, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go see, let's see what happens with that. And like again, there's a lot of excitement there. There's a lot of like interesting decisions and stuff made there too. But it also just like like as a player, like when I'm playing, it's like, oh man, like you know, what would have happened if I had gone with maybe
Yeah.
my GM, Matt knew what would happen, or he didn't, and he was surprised that I followed, or like or whatever, right? Like setting that aside, it's like okay, like I mean, as a character, as someone who's playing this character, like those decision moments, I think are really interesting, and also just like makes me wonder, like, oh, like should I have just gone just to sort of see what's going to happen, right? Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is like, I guess does any of this like resonate? I guess have you run games or played in games where you've had this sort of decision point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, you screwed up by not following the
yeah, of
vampire.
course,
Like
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's the trick, isn't it, with
yeah.
gaming? Like I mean, this reminds me of like people complain about a horror movie of like, why are they being so stupid? Why did
Hmm.
they split up?
Yeah,
Why did they go into the dark basement when there's no lights? It's like,
mm,
well, do you not want a fun movie?
yeah,
Because if you
yes,
don't want a
yeah,
fun movie, we don't have to do any of this. And
yeah,
we can assume everyone did the smart thing, which was get back in their car and drive back
yeah.
to drive back home and not investigate the thing, right?
Yes.
So I don't have an answer for you because that's the tension of role playing, right?
Hmm.
And despite my joke, it wasn't the right or the wrong decision
Yeah.
for you to do. And it's hard to make these decisions in the moment. What I kind of want when I'm making that decision when I'm a player is I want trust that whatever I decide the GM will run with it. Like
Hmm.
it will move things forward in an interesting way.
Yes.
So, not having followed the vampire could lead to a lot of interesting things. For one, you don't have proof, you still don't have proof he's a vampire,
Hmm.
right? So, whatever comes out, you actually, if you had followed, you might have gotten your answer of like, yes, this is a evil vampire that should be destroyed at all costs, but you don't have that piece of evidence. And
Yes.
that could create interesting role playing situations down the road. You still don't really know, right?
Hmm.
On the other hand, maybe the GM had an amazing set piece battle with the vampire if you had just followed the vampire into its lair, and maybe he would have broken out a big hand-drawn battle map of the
Yeah.
vampire's lair,
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
knows, right?
Yeah.
But like, if you trust a GM, and I think knowing you and this GM, I think you do trust this
Yeah, yeah,
GM,
of course.
that should be a tough decision, but the decision shouldn't be made with like the sort of meta fear that you will ruin the game with your decision. So,
Yeah.
in that sense, I think you probably did the right thing. Do we all know people that use the like, well, that's what a character would do to do
Yes.
something like irritating? We do.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know you well enough to know that does not factor into your decision. And you truly are thinking like, what is this curious PC that I've created going to do? I think you made the right decision because
Mhm.
it was the decision that you made, right?
Yeah.
Like, you took the decision seriously and you made it. You wrestled with it for a minute and you made it. And I hope you don't feel any fear that you've like screwed up the game or
Mm-mm.
that you backstabbed the GM with your decision,
Mm-mm.
because I very much doubt that was the situation. Like,
Yeah.
maybe your GM assumed you would never follow the vampire into its dark subterranean lair and
Yeah.
would have had to just frantically cobble together
Yeah.
a scene. Who knows? So,
Yeah.
did you talk to the GM? Did you say to him, was I, quote, supposed to have followed the
No,
vampire?
no. I mean, yeah, like he listens to this podcast occasionally, so maybe we'll talk about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. It didn't feel like oh, this is the letdown of the campaign or something like that, or like even
Yeah.
like oh, that was the best decision you made this campaign, right? Either it was just sort of like this curious moment, right? Whereas I think the rest of that session in particular, I think I had kind of done like a yes and a little bit more with stuff too, and like this moment felt like a almost like a no, like a no but right,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like yeah, a no but situation of like, oh, like I'm not gonna do that, like for, and I felt like I needed to explain myself a little bit more maybe, right? The other thing that's sort of like tying into this is like the character I'm playing is very squishy, and she's already like almost died died a few times, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, I think there was also that element of like okay, maybe I shouldn't just rush in without everybody else at my back on this, right? But like I again, like metagame wise, like we're probably gonna have to deal with this supposed vampire at some point, like, so part of me is like, oh, like would this have been the right time for us to just charge in and try to take him down, or again, right, we're talking about villains and stuff, like I don't know, maybe he's not such a bad guy, like in universe, like are vampires bad? I don't know, probably, but like we haven't we haven't really decided that as a
Yeah.
group
Yeah.
either. Yeah, so it was a very interesting moment. It made me like just like kind of appreciate the ways in which those moments can arise somewhat naturally, right? Like, because like you alluded to, like he might have been like, why would you ever run after after like this vampire, or like or this wasn't supposed to happen in a way that like you guys were involved in any in any fashion where you could have seen what had happened, right? Because
Yeah.
there was a series of roles that sort of led up to that moment too, where I mean, I think it's like, okay, like maybe we shouldn't have been there, like right, to see
Mm-hmm.
sort of the rest of it. But it's also like, and that's the magic of role playing, right? It's not like you're playing a video game where you run down that hallway and there's a guard who just sort of like says the same dialogue over and over, like, sorry, I can't let you pass, like the
Yeah.
princess is hurt, just you just keep hammering that talk button, you can't get through. I don't know, like, so going back to it, like, it's just an interesting decision point. And do you like try to look for those sorts of things when you're running games where you're like, I'm gonna like put this clearly, like, I don't know, ambiguous decision in front of players where it's like you could go that way or you could go this way? Do you try to work those in like intentionally when you're running games, or is that not something that's really like on your radar?
So, what I like about your situation that you described
Hmm.
is that it unfolded like kind of organically.
Hmm.
Maybe your GM was like, the moral centerpiece of this session is going to be the choice of whether to follow the vampire or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But I bet it probably wasn't.
Hmm.
That's more interesting to me. As a GM, I don't really love like contriving difficult moral decisions for
Mm.
players.
Okay.
It's more interesting when like the player creates the difficult decision
Yes.
themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that decision to follow the vampire or not to follow the vampire isn't isn't like a big moral decision in and of itself, but it becomes one when you have a PC with like their own conflicted motives and their fears about their safety. And then it becomes like kind of an interesting an interesting decision to make. Mostly, I feel like if I were a GM and I were building scenarios around like moral decisions, that feels to me like I'm trying to force players through a short story or a novel that lives in my head
Mm, mhm,
rather
mhm.
than. So I think it sounds like it played out quite well. You know, your GM didn't build up to your decision to follow or not follow for
Yeah,
3 sessions,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It wasn't the big thing, it wasn't the centerpiece of the campaign. It was just something that, like, because of maybe 15 different choices and random die results, you
Mhm.
found yourself having to make this particular decision. And because of where you happen to be, this decision has more weight than maybe the 14 decisions that came before it.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that is great, and it came about in like an organic way, and so I celebrate that. You should decide, is this going to bother my PC? And
Mm,
maybe it will bother your PC, and maybe this gets rolled into the way you play your character in future sessions
mhm.
and will affect the way you respond when organic tough decisions come up again. Like, that's something you can't replicate in other mediums. Not to keep, I know I'm monologuing here, but
Yeah.
so I play a lot of like video games, and I tend to like your Mass Effects and your Cyberpunks and your
Mhm.
Witchers, where you often have a tough moral decision to
Mm,
make.
yeah.
And I always feel a sort of resentment when the game forces me into like a no win
Yeah.
or a difficult decision that I feel like it didn't earn.
Mhm.
What you described to me is an earned difficult moral decision.
The video game version of that might present that, like, the Mass Effect style would be like, like, do you help the vampire bite her? Or do you like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's a certain kind of fun, but it is very different from like the subtlety of that moment, right? Of like, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, like, right, there's all sorts of stuff that happened during that session, kind of that in-game night, that sort of led to that moment being more interesting than probably as written it was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the game that we're playing has, and like the story, like, that we're working through, has some like really tightly scripted sort of like NPC moments, like, right? So there's stuff that's
Hmm.
happening that we can affect, but like if we don't involve ourselves, it's just going to happen. Right. And so like there's a number of things that happen where we involved ourselves and also did not involve ourselves, right? To lead to that moment yeah, in an interesting way, yeah. And it is fun because like it is just like it's a very small moment. I don't even know if like anyone else at the table picked up on it being something that was interesting to me. It's like all that sort of stuff, but it's like it is something that I like, that I've been enjoying kind of reflecting on over the past,
Yeah.
like week or so. Just thinking about that session in particular. It's like, oh, like that is, I don't know, like, yeah, like just what would happen if it had gone a different way. All right. Well, we need to wrap up there. Thanks for talking through that with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've been Roll for Topic. Thank you all so much for listening. We just, yeah, quick programming note, like on, so we're sort of hard at work planning the Roll for Topic Con. So again, if you know us and you're interested in going and you're not otherwise connected with us, please reach out over emails just so we can make sure that you
Yes.
have the information that you need for that. But yeah, I think that'll do it for us. You can always go catch Andy and John Corey over on Zombie Strains. I was talking with John recently in person, and he mentioned that we're now entering the era of zombie movies in which like things get kind of grosser and grimier, and
Yes.
even the names
Yes.
of some of these movies you really shouldn't pronounce in front of in front of small ears. So
Right, right, right.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah, the exploitation 70s. We're
yes,
we're in it. We're already in it. I thought we might have to wait till like the mid 1970s, but nope,
nope,
nope, early
just
70s, and we're already
right
there. So,
away. Yeah,
yeah.
cool. All right, well, that'll do it for us. I've been Chris Salzman,
I've been Andy Rao.
and remember, if your player's having fun, you're a great GM.